Show, the FootyCast, where WA's best footy show and WA's best beer combined to bring you all the best bits from round 2. That's right, 17th and 18th, straight from the bottom of the ladder, Skeeter. Here we are.
There we go.
How are you, mate?
I went for a walk first thing this morning. I'm thinking, is it appropriate to ask the question whether our 2 WA clubs are going to be satisfied with, you know, your kid's not that great at running or athletics, but they get the ribbon, just competing, just being part of it. Participation award. That is where we're heading in WA football. After 2 weekends, we are in a fair degree of pain.
Well, I'll tell you what it does do, Skeeter, and you know what we do here at the Shelter FootyCast. We like to pump things up, especially our own tyres. So it sets something up for Thursday night. That's right, Skeeter. Live at the Leederville Hotel. If you haven't got your tickets yet, go to backchatstudios.com.au. We've got a 4-point party. That's right. One of these teams, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be walking away with 4 points on the weekend unless there's a fucking draw.
Could it be a pity party?
Pity party, derby preview show. We've got the captain of West Coast going to pump him full of questions. Sean Darcy, live on stage. We'd love you down at the Leederville Hotel. Go and grab your tickets. If not enough people buy tickets, I'm cancelling the whole thing because seriously, like WA footy, we may as well cancel out at the moment. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're getting up and about because it's a pity party coming up.
Yeah,
we've got a 4-point party.
It's if it's anything like the last gathering you had there, which it actually looked like a bachelor party, except there were girls having a great time, blokes. Hammer was on fire. I was quite astounded that grown men would behave like that.
Okay, good. We're going to get down there. We've got the Derby preview show. Someone's walking away with 4 points. Go and get your tickets, backchatstudios.com.au. You can find them on Instagram as well, whether it's here at Shelter FootyCast. And we would continue to like your feedback and interaction on the show. FootyCast at backchatstudios.com.au. Skate, let's get into the big moments of the round.
The big moment I can see, just quickly,
yes.
Which cricketer is on your shirt?
It's Mitch Marsh.
It is Mitch Marsh, because it had the dark helmet. I couldn't quite, not the green helmet. I thought it was like an English batsman the way it was.
Copywriting issues. So
I was wondering, I couldn't quite see the angle there, but the Bison, you've...
Yeah, got the Bison, the West Australian. I mean, if we can't get footy's not going well, I'm going to cricket. How good's cricket, everybody?
That shows you how bad footy's going when you start steering towards cricket.
Well, West Coast and Fremantle remain winless. I mean, that's close to one of the biggest stories, not only in Western Australia, but in footy, I think. But not West Coast, but Freo. Both at the bottom of the ladder. I mean, if 3 weeks ago, and I said West Coast and Freo on the bottom of the ladder, you would have laughed at me. Maybe not West Coast.
West Coast not so much. Carlton's the other one. You're thinking 0-2, give me a break. Fremantle, yeah, both losses. Yesterday was a lot better performance, but once again, I think their trend of unable to shut out games has been exposed once more. And well done to Coxie. It was good to see him from a neutral perspective have a good result. First win as coach, had to earn it because they came from, I think they out of the time in front. It was about 80 minutes to about 10, but they managed to hit the lead when it mattered, and they get the points, and they're 1-2. So this season's back on track to some degree.
Has anyone surprised you then? If we just have before we get into is Adelaide?
Not so much the results, because I tipped them both times, but it was their manner about the way they're playing their footy. So, and look, I thought North Melbourne would improve this year. Yeah. So I didn't tip them at the weekend, but I thought they would improve. Surprise in a positive sense. Well, the Gold Coast, we're not sure yet, are we? We've had one sample size.
That's a good point.
And if they come out and beat Melbourne this week and do it at the MCG, I think we can put them down as a legitimate contender to play finals.
Skeeter, I will tell you before we keep going, tipping, there's a lot of Shelter FootyCast members in this one. Carol Hamilton, Granny Hamilton, has taken out the tipping this week for a slab of shelters. That's right, a carton of shelters coming your way. Carol, 8 from 8 with a 0 margin.
So she got the margin right as well?
Exact margin, 8 from 8.
So she's picked, let's look at the upset, she's picked North to beat Melbourne. Was there another big upset? Probably St Kilda was a big upset.
St Kilda to beat Geelong. Adelaide wasn't an upset. Collingwood to beat Bulldogs wasn't an upset, but that was a close one.
But those two there, getting the St Kilda one, and I had a little investment on them as well. So
I mean, Sydney weren't favourites either, to be honest.
That was a game I thought was more 50-50. But yeah, well done to Carol. So she picks up a slab. Hopefully she drinks beer.
Why wouldn't she?
Well, I'm saying hopefully she drinks it. If not, she's got someone who will, I'm sure.
Okay, well, she's a big follower of the show, FootyCast, WA's best brand, best beer. Now, umpiring consistency, I want to start with this one off the top.
Really? Round 2 and we're already going down that path?
What would you like me to do? Because I look at this and I watch the West Coast game yesterday, and they didn't lose because of umpires. And I will say that no one loses because of umpires. But if we're going to sit here and critique teams and players and the AFL, I think we should be able to do it to umpires too. And the umpiring standard in the West Coast game was unacceptable. There was 10 decisions made incorrectly at a minimum in the first half. They were inconsistent with decisions made. So 15-metre kick was one of them, that someone was hot on it, someone was soft on it, someone was in the middle. It's like what's Goldilocks?
Well,
little cold, little hot, somewhere in the middle. Like nothing was just right.
So the one that stands out for me was the kick from Ashcroft marked by Hipwood, which clearly wasn't 15, and there was a 50-metre penalty. But
the one that stands out for me is the non-call where every single player on the ground stood still. The ball was at Ruben Jimby's feet. Everyone was just looking around. The umpire was within 5 metres. And they weren't even calling play on.
This is not fair. You're not talking a 15-metre penalty.
No, this is a free kick.
But
missed or
it wasn't paid. I saw that. It was a free
why would every player on the ground stop?
No, it was obviously a bad call. What I will say in defence of the umpires is that the 15-metre kick, if you're out in the middle of an umpiring, I think it's not that easy.
It's arbitrary.
Yeah, it's where your line of sight is. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, no one knows exactly what's 15 metres. Even the players sometimes wouldn't know.
But I like the play on call. I think it's good. Yeah. So keep paying it. So I watched probably 6 of the 8 games this weekend. To start the weekend, they stopped calling it. They were calling 8-metre kicks marks, and then suddenly, late Saturday, early Sunday, we're back on again. And I just would like more consistency, and I think it's okay to critique, because the Collingwood Western Bulldogs game, there was a huge discrepancy, and there were senior umpires out there as well, and people have come out of that game saying that game was decided by umpiring decisions.
Yeah, well, the margin was 6. Again, that's been the complaint of the Footscray supporters on Friday night. Just quickly on the 15th, I don't even mind if at some stage, not in the near future, but the more you stretch it out, if it's 20 metres in 2 or 3, that to me will keep.
20 is probably easier to call.
Yes.
20 metres is more obvious than 15.
Yeah, well, 15, and it means you can't just have these little short chips. Look, the umpire, I called the game yesterday for radio. I didn't notice it as significantly as you did, but as we both agree, you've got a slightly different eye when you're calling it, and you were.
Well, they couldn't bounce the ball. They literally couldn't bounce the ball. So that's a requirement of the game. That's like a player not being able to kick.
But that's not an incident that will affect the outcome of a game. Decisions are.
No, it's not. But why are we even bouncing it if you can't? You've got a crew of umpires that can't bounce it.
Well, that's something there. I mean, the Waffles brought back the bounce for those umpires that want to get up there. It's part of it. It's not going away.
Yeah. Okay. Now, HIA and concussion protocols. I saw several of these Friday night. Pendlebury being one of those. I saw a head clash on Friday night between 2 players. I saw several others across the ground games. I don't think we're getting this quite right. I've said it before. I think there needs to be an independent doctor. I've had feedback that there is independent doctors at each game. I don't think there is.
I know there is in the NRL. I've heard talk that there is an independent medical official at games as well, but I don't. I'm not going to go to war on that one.
I either need better understanding of what is a requirement, but as I sit here today, if you get hit in the head with force, that to me would, I think, mandate coming off the ground. We see it in if the litigation around head knocks and concussions and life after footy that we're starting to see decisions be made on is true, which it is. Every other sport around the world, you're coming off if you get a head knock. So Scott Pendlebury goes in. It was a complete footy incident. There's nothing wrong with it. But he smashed his head, lay on the ground, holding his head. Not only did not come off to get, not only didn't go into concussion protocol or HIA, didn't come off. He had 10 touches in the first quarter. So maybe he's not concussed. But I don't think we're quite getting it right. We're either going this, and if you get a head knock, you come off, and you've got to come off, and you've got a doctor there, and they do a test.
But how long does that assessment go for? Because if you're a player, and let me put it back on you, if you're a player and you would have been as competitive as anyone, and you've taken a head knock, but obviously in your mind there's nothing untoward. It's just a knock like to any other part of your body.
Yes.
Are you saying that an independent official, medical official from the sidelines, then signals to the umpire, because you're not going to put your hand up? No,
just send the runner out. Send the doctor out. Like the independent guy goes, right, there's been a head knock. Someone's got to go get that person. Like, we've had runners on the ground for
and they've got to come off.
Yeah, you come off. You got to come off and get checked. Otherwise, we're not taking it seriously.
How long is the check going to take?
I don't know.
Because my point is, if you're going to be off for 15 minutes,
yes,
that's like, I'll tell you, as a player, if you feel that you've had minimal contact with this, I think, you go into grey areas again.
I agree with you, but you can't have your cake and eat it too, because you can't say, as a player, I don't want to come off, and then 10 years later sue the game because you haven't been looked after well enough. So that's what's happening. I agree with you. And I've been that player. No worries.
I can imagine.
But the game's, but the game's changed. But blokes used to get king hit back in the day. It doesn't happen anymore.
No.
And the way we treat head knocks is changing. So I just don't think, if we're taking it so seriously, that's reflecting in the game at the moment. That's probably the point I'll make. And until I have better understanding, I'm going to keep bringing it up. That's okay. Continuing on with some other sort of moments around talking about head knocks. Rory Lobb cleared for striking Mason Cox in what can only be described as technically one of the great spoils I've seen, execution-wise. He's missed the ball and hit ahead. And I like the fact, if I sit here today, that it's not outcome over action. Yeah. I don't think that action should be suspendable. I think he's accidentally got it wrong, clearly. He's hit him in the head. If we were outcome-based, that should have been suspension, because he's bloodied up, he's got a cheekbone up and about.
I think he should have been suspended. If for no other reason than you're wearing blue hair on a Friday night in front of 70,000 people at the G. Seriously, Rory, we like you. You're a good fella. You wouldn't harm a fly, I've been told reliably. But seriously, wearing the blue hair deserves a suspension of some description. And on a serious note, again, this is more your space than mine, because I just think it's a swamp of horrible people on there at times. Mason Cox cops so much flack about him getting whacked, and the American copping a blow to the head. People jumping all over him.
Is this off the back of Mason reposting people sort of saying well done? And
possibly. But it was about him getting belted anyway. Hang on, that's the cesspit.
He's polarising.
He is. And he can I say this?
He plays into it.
There's a bit of scoey there somewhere.
Is there?
Well, no, just the fact you engage and you banter, and no, I think he's great for the game. You don't think you're great for the game?
You just, I suppose
Don't be offended.
There's a bit of you've offended me. You have.
Why, Coxie? No, because he's prepared to have some ban. I'm not talking about as a footballer.
Well, there's a bit of you and Joe Biden. He's a president. No, he's the president of America.
So you
don't want to be leader of the free world. Sorry.
So you think that I'm not sharp? He
just look like him a bit. That's all. So don't be offended.
I just said you had banter on X.
I just said you're the president of the United States. No, isn't that a bad thing?
But you were offended by that. Why?
Yeah, I'm offended.
Why?
I don't know.
No, Cox, he's always up there for a chat. I think he's great.
Well, I thought Joe Biden was.
I don't even know. There's not even any connection there, but that's fine. You can keep trotting out the same old lines.
Yeah, you offended me. Great. Will Schofield, Mark Reddy, Shelter Brewing Co., the beer that Skeeter can't get enough of.
I haven't got anything mine.
Are you back on the beers yet or not?
No, I've never not been on them, but I'm just...
I'm
going to go... I'll do my 40 or 50 days soon, once we get through this little period.
Keeps getting pushed back.
It's a bit like doing the backyard or doing the garage.
All right, Skate, let's get into it. Brisbane defeat West Coast by 19 at the Gabba. If you're a West Coast fan, I think this is close to what you wanted to see in round one. Gold Coast, not sort of the game you wanted to see as a West Coast fan, but West Coast competitive against Brisbane.
Yeah, really good early, weren't they? And look, for every bit of praise we give to the Eagles, which is justified, Brisbane were like a cold pie in the first half, let's be honest. They were well off. And that's again, no disrespect to what Andrew McQualter and his team did. I thought they started really well. Some of their, and more importantly, some of their unheralded players were important. Some of the younger players, Tyrell Dewar was important.
Well, they played him on the wing, which is where they trained him. Or they didn't play him there in round one because Bo Allen came out. He played on the wing and he was good.
Yeah, I think even in that first round, I think it took some kick-ins from memory. But yeah, so pushing him up the ground, I think what it does give the Eagles a little bit of, once hopefully he settles into that role, is a bit of speed and a bit of an X factor through the middle of the ground, and he's still learning his craft. But yeah, I was really impressed, and we talked about they were beaten in the contested possession count by 43 against the Gold Coast. McQualter made sure that was tidied up to a large degree on the weekend. So guys like Tim Kelly certainly showed a lot more appetite for the footy. But as I said, it was a nice mix of some of the young guys coming through, and you mentioned Jimby, Marich. There enough there to make you think that there's, as opposed to a week before, that they played a brand of footy, and missing a couple of players, Jack Graham laid out, and of course Jake Waterman, that there's something there to work with.
It's just interesting how quickly the story changes, right? Because last week we were saying, well, they don't have anyone to bring back in. Where to from now? How are they going to get any better? I don't think they changed a great deal, yet they...
Attitudinally, I think they were a lot better.
That's it. That they didn't change players, and you see a performance like you do round one, and you're there as a fan and as someone who's, giving their opinion on how they play, and you think, well, what? I don't know. I don't understand how you even improve from there. But then they lead at every break here, and the first quarter they kicked 6-1 or something like that, jumped out of the blocks, clearly jumped Brisbane, who were sluggish at best. But the contested element of West Coast game, which we kind of heard in and out all pre-season, that the contest and the aggressiveness was... And if they played like that every week and they lost every game, West Coast fans, I dare say, would be okay with it. They didn't want to win, but you want to play like that.
Absolutely. I'm getting the SMSs on radio yesterday just on that first half. And let's be honest, they did fall away after half time. Not so much in their effort, because the third quarter, you're entitled to chuck something at the TV, a shelter at somewhere in the vicinity of a TV, because how many chances did they...
Yeah, they kicked 0.
6 behinds, I think 1-6. And it was...
And some easy ones.
Some of them were just, Oscar Allen on the goal square, and it was like watching Benny Hill. There was some really... As a coach, poor old Andrew McQualter would have been put through the mill. So that they really lost momentum after that. And after half-time, to be honest, Brisbane clicked into gear to some degree. And with the Eagles scoring just, 10 goals to 3. So they did control the second half, Brisbane. They had the quality to do that. But I thought it was a relatively brave effort by the Eagles. And I think they can take something from that.
Bailey Williams was late in the ruck because of his contest, but then he gets subbed out. So
they said tactical, but then I saw some strapping. Maybe he got a corky. I'd like to get some clarification on that. But
I just thought his effort in the ruck,
very good.
Not really around the ground, but as in he had 4 touches. But like I said before the game, that's all you need as a ruckman. Like, he was very good.
Which Matt Flynn didn't do the week before.
23 hit outs, but what it did expose when he went off as a tactical sub. Big Archer Reid went in there and he started cramping within about 7 seconds. And then the boy was in there in the ruck, and he wasn't terrible. He got 1 hit out. He competed. But they don't, with no Jake Waterman, they probably would have chucked an Oscar Allen around it, but they didn't seem keen to do that. I still don't think Oscar's body is where he would like it to be.
He doesn't look, I know he had a tough time down in defence with in attack with the defence of Brisbane with Andrews, etc. But he just doesn't look quite right at the moment. Maybe getting himself back to the level of fitness, etc. required. But what I did see in the first half, in brief, I was really impressed with, instead of, and they couldn't really bomb the ball long, they used the short hit-up pass, and I thought they were more savvy with the way they used the footy going inside 50. Yep. Now, whether that was Brisbane also gave them that latitude, but I thought they used the ball better. Their small forwards looked dangerous. Liam Baker was outstanding in the middle. I thought he gave them some real grunt.
So do you play him in the middle of the ground going forward?
Absolutely. I just think that, I'm not saying he's wasted at half-back, but I think he's a type of player, particularly with Elliot Yeo not there. I think he's really important to them because that's their deficiencies in there. And Harley's still better yesterday, but not brilliant. I think that the midfield,
Yeah, Harley had 7 clearances, 6 tackles.
7 free kicks against.
7 free kicks against.
Which is, and you can smile about it and laugh about it, but at what point Andrew McQualter defended him after the match? And let's treat him like every other player. If Will Schofield gives away 7 free kicks...
No, but if Jeremy McGovern gives away 7 free kicks, Jeremy McGovern should know better.
Well, there's 6. Yeah.
We can't treat him like every other player.
Why not?
That's the point of it. Because he's in his second year. And, you're right. You know the rules. Playing junior footy, it's not like he doesn't know the rules. Why can he give those free kicks away?
I'm not talking about his attitudinal stuff and the banter. It's more about, I still think you can call him out and just say, hey, mate, maybe you need to modify. Because if you give him 7 free kicks a game, that's in Carl Langdon territory. Seriously, it is.
That's a big number of free kicks.
That's a lot of free kicks to give away. So I think you can have, if the kid's not mature enough at 19 to have that discussion, then there's something wrong. I think absolutely there's a discussion to be had.
What about the bird?
I think Richo gave the bird, didn't he, going back over the years?
Cornsey gave the bird. There's a big bird off. But they've both come down from the stands with tissues.
Who's carrying tissues at the footy?
That's the bigger issue. What do you reckon?
What will he get? Yeah, we get a fine. Will he get a fine for the Zorko just knee, or will he just get play on?
See, that was a more interesting one.
It wasn't with force, but it's unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't. You could explain that away as being clumsy, but I know exactly what was going on there.
Purposely clumsy.
His knees into Zorko, absolutely. But the middle finger stuff, I obviously don't care, and I don't think really anyone really gives a shit about that, to be honest. But he'll get fined. The knees, he'll get fined too. So he's run out with 7 free kicks against. He's probably walking out with $5,000 fine.
He's got a bit of work to do to catch Toby Green, but Harley, look, I thought there were better signs from him, but there will be talk about it. I don't care what you say, but is he losing his concentration on the task at hand at times, or do you think that is the way he will play for the rest of his career?
Excuse me. I think someone needs to pull him aside immediately and sit him down and go, just focus on your footy, mate. Don't worry about the umpires. Don't worry about the crowd.
Because the players are getting into him. Because they know now that he'll take the bait.
And
that's hard, because I know you, and I know if I was, I'd be taking the bait, and most of us would. Yeah, it's a huge temptation, or certainly it's difficult to just turn turn away and ignore it.
So I saw a lot of the commentary around it last week. They need to get a Pendlebury in, and they need to get they need to go and get Nat Fyfe to the footy club. And they need to get senior players around him to sort of teach him. Let me tell you, Luke Shuey and Shannon Hearn, who are both at the football club, are 2 of the best leaders, both captains of the football club. Luke Shuey was tagged for a good part of his career.
Never heard. I didn't see much from him.
Shannon Hearn, one of the more consistent human beings I've ever been around. Not just football player, but human beings. Like this bloke's steak, carrots, beans, potatoes every night. Just a consistent
basic
man. Right? Not basic, just consistent.
Just
mate, just meat and potatoes sort of guy. And he just doesn't alter, and he doesn't care what anyone else thinks, and he just does his thing. He's got 2 of the best people ever around him. So I speak about personal responsibility a lot, and you need to take responsibility on yourself. I'm not going to hold Harley at the same standards of others. However, he has the tools around him to make him better. Luke Shuey and Shannon Hearn being those guys.
Let me just quick shout out a bloke who came back into the side and I thought showed some polish, showed some poise, was Liam Ryan as well. So I just need to give him a tick, because he's in that stage of his career now where he's had injuries. We know that. I'll be honest with you, I thought 3 or 4 years ago, if they're doing the trade out of the darlings, etc., which I think should have happened, that he was one player that could have done that. But now he's staying. I think he's the guy that, if he can have a uninterrupted run, is the maturity now in his football to lead some of these young small forwards like Long, Dewar, if he's in that position, Brockman, etc., and give them that guidance. I'm not sure if he's that sort of player, but certainly by his actions will help.
Ryan Marrick was good too.
Yeah,
really good skills. You need to see that in the derby, the same effort to be a tick. If you cop what you copped against Gold Coast,
no, they won't be doing that.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I'm just I'm trying to put a positive spin on this week.
No, they're very positive. I'm just being realistic, if that's okay. Because if they don't rock up, then that's just nothing. It's a you need to create patterns.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that first game was an anomaly.
I'm hoping to God that it's a competitive derby. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Sydney defeat Fremantle. I heard you pick. You picked up Brisbane. Sydney defeat Fremantle by 3 at Optus Stadium. Skeet, you would have been calling this one with 7, no doubt. I was in the corporates, actually. Took my kids to the footy and watched this one from the stands.
Hang on. You're either in the stands or you're in the corporates. Where are you?
Yeah.
You can expose yourself here.
Corporates, yeah.
Can you give us, under which banner?
Look, I just...
Was it a brewing company? Was it a betting agency? Was it a strip club? So give us the
No, it was just, mate, it was very thankful to be at the Freo.
I'll give you a lot of insight into my life, and you can't even tell me where you're going to watch the footy.
Great hospitality from the Fremantle Dockers. Thank you very much, Skeeter. I was in the hangar part where they run out.
I know, because you do some work for them, and I'm in the same world. I know that you
the world you live in is
what?
I don't attend things unless I'm in a box. That's the world you live in.
Turn it up. I'd love to go to the footy and just sit back with you and have a pie and
if I'm not careful, my son's maybe getting towards Dockers fans. I've never taken him to a West Coast game. Well,
if I've got to be careful, that sounds like you're worried.
I mean, it'd probably be an interesting situation with their dad playing 200 games for West Coast and them going for the Dockers.
I'm sure I've seen young kids when their dads played for a certain club, because that club that their dad played for is now rubbish, that they barrack for the team that's flying. So I don't think it's unusual.
Wait and see. But if we get into the game a little bit. Look, Fremantle led this one. Did they lead it the entire game until
not the entire game, but probably
close enough to
probably 85% of the time they led. But they always, and let's be honest, Sydney butchered many chances in the first half. And a lead of 22 points at quarter time I thought was a bit flattering to Fremantle. Sydney had probably 2 or 3 really good chances to score, and they ended up kicking just 3 goals for the half and 5 behinds up to quarter time. So yeah, Fremantle, the signs were a lot better. The intent, their first quarters, which have been so damaging for them, they alleviated that.
Yes.
They certainly negotiated their way through the pressure that Sydney provided. The handball game, which has been talked about a fair bit.
It was a pretty scrappy game.
It wasn't a great game to call in that sense.
So I sort of look at that and sometimes you think, well, was it Sydney that brought it that way? They certainly clamped down Fremantle's midfield. Sarong and Brayshaw were very quiet, 19 touches each.
Your man James Jordan.
So we were Sarong.
Yeah, so we were all thinking pre-game because, of course, last time round 17 these sides met, Jordan went to Jordan Clark.
Right.
So that was, you'd be obviously under a different coach. Yesterday went to Sarong. Now Sarong, invariably picks up his 25, 30 or thereabouts. He was kept to 19
and a goal, and he spent a bit of time in that rotating forward. James Jordan had 24 disposals and 10 clearances. So it's not like he's just running around having no touches.
Is he the best run with player in the competition at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. But the point being, they shut their entire midfield down. Jager O'Meara had touches.
He was good. O'Driscoll did.
32, 25, but they were both outside on the day. So the inside battle was completely dominated by Sydney. They won clearances 37-25. I think if Freo are going to win games of footy, you can't have Sarong and Brayshaw. One of them has to stand up. So Rowbottom spent pretty close attention to Brayshaw at stoppage. They were well beaten, and that's why Freo got done in the end, I think. Their forward line was good. Tracy was
outstanding.
Back line held up well. They only had 68 points scored against them. So the not scoring was the issue, and that started in the midfield.
Yeah, I know they're missing Young, and I know I've banged on about this. I still think their midfield, I know you've got them in the elite category. I don't have them. I think they need more depth. And so on that basis, obviously Young missing, that changes the dynamics. But yeah, I think Sydney bat deeper in that area. Bear in mind, it's a very courageous win by Sydney without Goulden, without Mills, without McInerney, without McDonald, 4 players off the top of your head. I thought it was a really courageous win and one that Coxie and his team deserved. That being said, touched on it at the top of the show about the Dockers' inability to win these type matches. They've now lost 6 in a row, in essence, from the last 4 of last year to the first 2 this year. Of those games, there have been matches that
4 are under 12 points.
Exactly. And the most damning one to me was the Essendon loss at the G, when they conceded late. You remember that with the centre clearance. So, they've worked on that over their off-season. And let's be honest, Sydney were in the arm wrestle and then they get it to Amadi and he kicks the goal and the game's done, despite the fact that they had one last chance. But their inability to shut out those type matches, they'll be buoyed by what they did and the way they went about their 4 quarters. But again, the inability to be sound through the middle. And let's be honest, Pat Voss misses a goal late in the game to put them, I guess, 2 possessions plus up. He then gets a ball in the wing, a central ball.
That was very bad.
Not only does he miss his target, he turns it over with a horrible kick. They kick a goal. So he wouldn't have slept well last night, and I know the players will get around him today.
I don't really like singling out players, and I'll try not to do that. But the thing with moments, when you're losing games by under a couple of goals, you always come back to moments. If you're getting done by 6 goals every week, it's like, well, there's a couple of goals here, a couple of goals there. But when it's under 2 goals, it's a contest here, or it's a kick through the middle of the ground, or it's a 20-metre per out goal, or it's a one-on-one contest. So all those players like Voss, Cox had that. I thought that contest was poor from someone who I rate very highly.
With Amadi?
Yes.
Yeah, I looked at it and went, he looks cooked.
So, look, you can
exhausted.
You can be exhausted, of course. I mean, he's played a big game.
Last minute and a half.
If it was someone I didn't rate very highly in the contest, I'd be like, oh, well, that's what we expect. But that just looks strange to me. If you want to change, and I'm not the oracle of teams here, but if you want to change your team's outlook and chances in these games, you need to personally execute in moments. Pat Voss needs to kick that goal. Pat Voss needs to get that ball deep inside 50 and not spray it through the middle of the ground. They can't give away free kicks unnecessarily. They can't give away too often easy get-out kicks to Sydney throughout the game. Like, Sydney under pressure. Pressure valves off. That happened too much. You can't be in a one-on-one contest with time and get done by men. You just can't. And that could be harsh, but it's not that. None of those things as coaching structure. So I know people are, Justin Longmuir this, Justin Longmuir that. And none of them are recruiting strategy. None of them are rotations and players available. It's in the moment. Can you come down? Can you do something about it and change the course of the game? And too many times over the past however long, Fremantle players, and I named some, but I'm sure most of them have had moments that they haven't stood up. And you won't ever win a flag, but you won't ever change the course of those games if you can't take personal responsibility, grit your teeth, and do what you have to do. And too often they haven't done what they need to do. The
Dockers at the moment, so early in the season, only 2 weeks in, they are so far off the better teams in the competition. Again, 2 weeks in. I think the Hawthorns, the Giants, Adelaide, at the moment. Now, that can change. If they've got the Derby, I think they've got Bulldogs, they've got Richmond, they've got Melbourne. They could be 4-2, but they could be also 3-3.
Is that because of their... are they that far off because of their attack? Like all those sides there, Adelaide, GWS and Hawthorn, they've all looked really good offensively, right? Freo, to me, don't look great in that regard. Are we saying they're okay? See, they're okay contested ball. They're okay defensively.
In one game. We've got one sample size of positivity, let's be honest, because the week before was terrible.
Yeah.
The season, and I think you brought this stat up, you lose your first 2 games, the numbers or the history doesn't bode well to play finals. And that's not to say they've got a pretty good draw coming up, let's be honest. But the margin for error for them now becomes a little less so because you need to get to, bottom line is, you need to get to 12 or 13 games as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
And if you're needing to win, 4 of your last 5 to get to 12 or 13,
yes,
then you're putting yourself under, like they did last year, a fair bit of duress.
So Derby next week, Bulldogs at home the week after.
Barossa Valley.
They've got Barossa, Richmond.
And Melbourne.
That. And then they've got Melbourne.
All winnable games.
Right.
But, that being said, so was yesterday.
Having seen what they've put out, they're all losable probably.
Yeah, look, he'd be
you win or you lose.
Coburn will be under siege if they're 0 from 6.
I think if you're Fremantle, you're backing in the way you go about it and you're putting it on the players. Again, I'm not.
But Scully, how do they kick a score? I mean, Amos was well held to a degree. I thought Tracy, as you know, but outside of that, it was.
I just thought they I guess I thought they would have opened the game up more. But, mate, sometimes it's the players you're playing. Like, sometimes
Sydney very good at just strangling you.
Yeah, it's a watch, certainly, Skeeter. I picked Fremantle, by the way.
I did too, and Brandon Walker, obviously.
What's he done? I saw him. So
holding his wrist, but by the sound of it, might be a shoulder, they're saying.
Ambulance. He was.
Yeah, so he's gone for a fair amount of time. But the luxury is that they have got Draper, who came on a sub. But, you don't want to start racking up those.
Different players, though.
Different players, but for yesterday, though, he was a defensive type. So, yeah, it's going to be a long term, I suspect.
All right. Well, like I said, the Derby next week, we've got a 4-point playoff. Someone's going to be 1 and 2, and it could be West Coast, and it could be Freo. It's your teams. Get down, have a beer, have a bit of fun down at the Leederville Hotel. Get your tickets. They're live right now. If you're on socials, you can find them in our link in bio. If you're on YouTube, they are in the links in the description. And if you are just sitting around in your car, if you're sitting on a plane, backchatstudios.com.au, go and get your tickets because someone's walking away with 4 points, Skeeter, and it sure as shit isn't you and me. Hawthorn defeat Carlton by 20 points at the MCG. This is on Thursday night, Skeet.
So. It seems like a long time ago now, I can tell you, after yesterday. No, I did this game and... it was a good game of footy, actually. It was a decent game of footy. Rain came, Hawks class came to the fore.
Yeah, Charlie Curnow looked underdone, but they played him. He both looked underdone, and Josh Battle played really well. He was on him all day. Thought he was excellent. Mabior Chol's best game for Hawthorn, I thought. 3 goals, but impacted around the ground with taps and tackles. I think he's getting really close to being on a selection squeeze. So Mitch Lewis and Kelsha Deer are sort of getting closer. He will know that he needs to play well to stay in this side. And when you're playing in a good side like Hawthorn, and that selection pressure comes, because it always does, because the good sides have these good players playing in the VFL or Waffle or whatever. You know that you're one game away from being out, and you just want to keep playing in these games. They look like they're having fun while they're playing. It was another game like Essendon the week before in which they kicked goals to stop the momentum of Carlton at stages. Like they found ways to stand up in a moment. Even though it was late, like the Wizards goal, that transition goal, like Carlton got it all the way and it just went bang, 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 Wizard from 50. Like they found ways to stand up, didn't they?
I did. They're small forwards, always thereabouts. And if Chol is doing his role, through the middle, Newcomb, again, outstanding, 32 touches. From a Carlton perspective, I had a really close look at Tom de Koning, and I'm just a huge admirer. The closer you look at him and what he can do, 40 hit-outs on Thursday, around the ground, 28 disposals. He was, I thought, clearly their best player.
But, Paddy Cripps was bloody amazing. And I think we think,
we set the standard
pretty high. What he does, right?
Yeah.
But he was... So those two players, if you take them out...
It's...
Mate, if you look at Hawthorn's side, you'd have 12 in that list of, hey, he played well, he did this, he tried to make it. Carlton had 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, well, during the game, it was before half time, but I think it was Motlop who kicked the goal, then it was reviewed, and the Snicko came in. That was to put them 15 or 16 points up.
Is this with the 19-man thing?
The 19-man thing is a different issue completely. But there were a couple of things that went against Carlton, that's what I'm saying. Even to Koning's early in the first quarter, there was either a free kick, I think, to Barris on the goal line. They didn't get the 50-50 calls. I thought they were a bit stiff on that basis. But the bottom line is, Scully, is that after half-time, they kicked 2 goals after half-time against the Tigers. On Thursday, they kicked 2 goals after half-time. So it completely dried up for them. I know the weather was a factor.
So Michael Voss was asked this in the press conference directly. He said, are you worried about how your team's running out games? And he said, no, they're going brilliantly. We had 19 inside 50s against Richmond and we created opportunities.
Kicked 2 goals 8. So on that base, they had chances. But bottom line is, they've kicked 2 goals in a half of footy, and that doesn't get it done a lot. I thought they were... I know you're probably going to be more critical than not. I thought Carlton were a lot better on Thursday. Hawthorn just had the poise, and Sam Mitchell was, I think, pretty relieved to get out of it with the way they played.
The pressure was elite. The pressure was elite from both sides. If Carlton can bring that against sides that aren't as good, they'll win games. But I still think their depth is a bit of a like if they lose lose a couple more players, which we already knew coming into this season, be a little bit worried if I was a Carlton fan. Collingwood defeat Footscray
Footscray.
6. Should we just call him Footscray for the rest of the season?
You know what? I actually like this name for the football club that used to be called Footscray. Now it's the Western Bulldogs. I prefer Footscray.
Because they changed it to Western Bulldogs to sort of include the entire western region of Melbourne.
I think so, yeah. It's more the area. Right. And I get it. And there's probably marketing reasons as well to get the younger generation involved. But Footscray's got a real romantic feel about it, hasn't it?
Yeah, you could bring it back and do the reverse marketing. Then you just flip it back to Footscray and then you go to the Western Bulldogs 10 years later.
What they did do was a really good pre-game for their 100th anniversary.
Yeah, they're reading the dictionary or something.
Yeah, had some big names of the past. So, yeah, Footscray, I think would have been close to a record home and away crowd for them, given Collingwood with their opposition. So, yeah, pretty good game of footy.
Tom Liberatore's game in a losing side, that was one of the better games I've seen. Well, him play, but I don't know. I don't know if that was obvious to everyone. I was calling this on radio. Tom Liberatore was unbelievable in this game. He was a bit of a cape, put the cape on. It's Wharfie time, get on my back type operation. I really liked his game.
Yeah, are you burying the lead here a bit?
Nick Dacos not getting tagged?
No.
Because I can't believe you can come back in.
Well, he's got 39, but that's... the lead here...
Tag Nick Dacos, please.
The lead is that this kid who plays in the forward line for Footscray,
yes,
Sam Darcy, I don't know, we've been dancing around this subject over the off-season about who's the most promising key forward in the game, yes, and the best talent in the next 10 years. I think he's answered even Tracy kicked a handful yesterday. I think he's answered the question on Friday that this guy is just, could be anything. 15 disposals, 4 goals, 2, marking everything at its highest point. I listened to Scott Pendlebury on I think it was Crunch Time at SEN on Saturday morning, and he was just so glowing in his praise for what Darcy does. He said, I'm sort of paraphrasing what he said, along the lines of, for the age of this young guy, he's probably the best talent he's seen in a key forward role. I'm not sure he could have been just in any role, that he's got as much talent. I think he even brought up, he said, Pendles goes, does he have his set shot for goal with kicking right-footed, and then in field play uses his left, which is, for a big...
Is that what he does?
Apparently. Yeah, there's a bit of ambidextrous nature about him, but yeah, he's something that they can, if Jamari Hagan never returns to that footy club, this guy is the future and the present of Footscray.
I think the 2021 draft will be the best we've ever seen. Can I give you the people in it?
Go for it.
Up to number 11.
Yeah.
Jason Horne-Francis, number 1. Sam Darcy, number 2. Finn Callaghan, number 3. Nick Dacos, 4.
Nick Dacos at 4.
Yeah, well, he slipped down to 4 somehow with acquisitions of draft picks. Mac Andrew at 5. Signed that mega
biggest
deal.
Contract of all time.
Josh Rochelle, who
come good,
had some issues, but then last year, but I think he's going to be a good player. Josh Ward, who is he's one of the brigade at Hawthorn that I reckon if you're calling games, there's about 6 of them.
Don't know who he is until you say, and he's number 25 gets a footy, and he's actually a very. I'm sure his role would be much appreciated.
Jai Amos at 8.
Yep.
Josh Gibcus, who did his ACL at Richmond, who's highly touted, tall. Neil Erasmus at 10, and Nazaya Wangani Malira at 11. That's about as good as it gets.
Yeah,
I think.
And the young Saints got some admirers as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, good game of footy. You talked about the umpires.
Collingwood won.
Collingwood did win.
I haven't mentioned a Collingwood player. Collingwood won.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Dacos with 39.
Yeah. I just don't... he was held absolutely... not touchless, but he was impartial to the game with Toby Bedford running on him. So against GWS, and they looked like nothing. Nick Dacos was the difference in this game. He had 39 touches and was the clearance and the link guy, like he always is. You can't tell me you can't tag him. I will say this to my grave. You can. Toby Bedford did it in round 0 and blew him up. So tag him. Does my head in, Skater.
Yeah, I just think... I thought... Yeah, it's a good win for Collingwood because it gets them back on the right side of the ledger, and they were challenged. They were challenged by Footscray, as you'd expect, but bit of poise at the end.
Mate, they're old blokes. Sidebottom and Pendlebury. Sidebottom and Pendlebury had 20-something touches in the last quarter.
I mentioned Scotty Pendlebury just on radio, but how about the little
Yeah.
The deft hand pass over the top to Dacos. And even on radio when he's asked about that, he said, did you know that Dacos was there? He said, well, Dacos, this is Nick, has got one of those the squawkiest voices, so you sort of know it's him. And as we know, Scotty just found his target.
Side bottom kicked that, basically the winner from the stoppage as well. So too old, unless they're playing really well, and then they're very, very good.
Yes.
That was the second oldest side in the history of the game to play.
Is that right?
Second to Geelong a couple of years ago.
I still don't think they're. I wouldn't put them in the top 3 or 4 premiership chances myself, totally.
No, but they'll win games.
But they'll win games, and I think enough to play finals. Barring a couple of banana peels.
Adelaide defeat Essendon by 61. The pitchforks are out at Essendon already. Like, people are off them, and Adelaide are winning the flag. That's the two polar opposites of this game. 61 at the MCG. I picked Essendon.
You did indeed. You're only 60 off.
Look, it's on $1 for every point I miss a thing by. I watched this game. Adelaide look elite offensively. People are saying they need to worry about the defense. I don't know if you remember a few years ago when I think it was the year they might have made the grand final. They just, I know for a fact inside the walls, they just said, we're just going to score more than the other team. We don't give a shit about defence.
Do you know who had the same philosophy?
Who?
Malcolm Blight when he was at Geelong.
Yeah.
When Gary Ablett Senior and co were involved.
Just kick more goals.
They just kicked, like 261 points in this game. I can't remember in modern footy. I'm sure there are statistics out there to prove me wrong, but that's huge numbers. And you're right. They've got. It's interesting because you think of Hawthorn's forward line, the way that's been set up with all the small forwards. It's more about the big boys.
Fogarty, Walker, Phil
Thorpe, yeah.
Do you like him still?
I love him.
Yeah.
I love the beard.
So he kicked 3, Fogarty kicked 3. I mean, everyone kicked goals in this game. Shelley kicked 4, Keys kicked 4.
It was done so easily, and you're right. And I know we're about to talk about Essendon, and all the positives of Adelaide can't be discounted, but the defence of the Bombers has been a concern for some time. Nothing's changed. Obviously, Ben Mackay's going to cop some real heat given the money he's been paid and his output, I guess, in many ways. But there's that element, Scully, but also these draft picks they've had over quite a long period of time. And it's leaving Zach Merritt, really, as a guy thinking, Dyson Heppel left the game last year having not won a final. And
Zach Merritt's had 36 and 4. It's a pretty good game, isn't it?
And they lose by 60.
Yeah.
I mean, this poor bloke, no wonder if he was considering going, that he at least be listening to other clubs.
Yeah, or at least get paid a lot more to stay there, which is obviously what's happened. Look, I understand the Mackay. I understand it because he's probably one of the most highly paid players there. But if you just talk about positionally, he's playing fullback. And that's probably why he don't go and pay your fullback all this money, because there's not much he can do about the way the ball comes in, the way the team's defending.
Yeah.
That Adelaide, to me, just looks like as soon as the ball was either in dispute or their way, they were just gone like a bomb. And Essendon were nowhere for the whole game. So if you're playing at fullback with that in front of you, not much you can do really. So I understand the criticism. I get that. Highly paid, deserves it in some way. But the issues at Essendon are a lot more than Ben Mackay.
Oh, he's a bit like Tom Hanks on the island, stranded, isn't he? He really, when Wilson, when the ball's coming in like that, you got to feel for him. And look, for everything that's positive about Adelaide, and I think you're right, they're attacking, going back a bit. Maybe last year you mentioned quite rightly that they're trying to shore up their change the game to not work to their strengths.
Yeah, they're trying to work on their weaknesses, which was defending. Just work on your strength.
And their strength was kicking scores. Now and their defence, I think, as it's their defence is probably as unheralded. Michael Annie and these sorts of blokes, Murray and whoever's down back. They're probably under the odds with profile. My question mark, and look, you're 2 from Zip. I'm assuming they're top of the table with their percentage. I'm guessing
they're not.
Aren't they? Be very close, wouldn't they?
No.
Anyway, so irrespective, they've beaten St Kilda at home, they've beaten Essendon away. There's tougher tests for Adelaide to come, but what it does do, Sco, it gives, unlike other Dockers, it gives the Adelaide Football Club early momentum and validation for what you did over the summer.
Yes, and a bit of hope, which Essendon are basically hopeless as you walk to the game. Know some Essendon fans back in Melbourne, and they're not too happy about it. It was Adelaide's first win at the MCG since 2017, so that was a good pick by me. Port Adelaide defeat Richmond by 72 points.
Oh, dear.
I know, we're not breaking this one down too much, Skeeter. Connor Rozee, 39 disposals, 2 goals. Jack Lukosius subbed out with a fractured kneecap. He will miss 3 to 4 months. That's season done.
Season done?
Oh, mate, like
Late.
16 weeks now. You're late in the year. Like, it's a big comeback from a fractured kneecap. You're going to have all sorts of secondary issues with that one as well. So, yeah, Richmond back to earth, but I think this is the side we probably expected from them. So, Carlton, it looks even worse for them, that loss at the MCG. In round 1, Port Adelaide, they were good, but I'm not going to read too much into it. Anything you want to add?
No, Georgiades, terrific. 4 goals. If he can stay healthy, they're going to need him to. I don't think we can read too much into this performance from either side. Port had to, obviously, there was just demanding that they did something in response to what they dished up in the first week of the season. And this will be the theme for Richmond, I think. Lots of good moments, but occasionally the odd thumping. And off the back of that, no surprise, they're beaten in so many factors. In fact, the game was done very early in this one. And when you look at the inside 50 count, it was actually 56-50, so not a huge differential there, but it was almost like men versus boys at times.
I did miss out a little shout out to Tom Edwards, who kicked 3 on debut for Essendon.
Yes,
not the best game to debut in, but
no, but that's kicking 3 in a team that gets done by 10, and he would have that's terrific news given he at Swan Districts was teaching up in the hills up until not so long ago.
St Kilda defeat Geelong by 7 at Marvel. This was an upset, absolutely it was, and Saints really picked apart some weaknesses that Geelong put forward. I'm sure Geelong fans will say we had no Tom Stewart for most of the day with a PCL injury. That was an impact injury to the PCL, which I would say, in my experience, not an overly good one to happen. When you do your PCL by running around, it's sometimes a better thing, whereas the impact ones can sometimes be more serious. So that'll be a watch for Tom Stewart. But really, the pressure that St Kilda brought to Geelong was the reason that they won. And we're going to see this throughout the year. If you can bring pressure, if you can execute off the back of that and score off transition, basically, you'll win games of footy. Doesn't matter who you are. And
this was tailor-made for Ross Lyon, given their record against the Cats at Marvel has been good.
Yes.
They play the ground well. They generally go for leg speed to try and test the Cats in that department. As you say, the Tom Stewart injury didn't help them. Jack McRae, not saying he's overly blessed with speed, but he knows how to get the footy.
Well, he had 35, 10 tackles, 9 clearances. That's a big game. And people criticise that pickup, St Kilda.
Yeah.
Well, so you're not going to have someone in there to do that?
No, not at all. No.
And we know how hard it's been to get players to their club. So I think that's a good acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. Marshall is... we talked about the merits of some of the Tom de Konings, etc. Marshall is a star. 32 hitouts, 29 disposals. Yeah, I mean Sinclair's got quality. 2 goals from him. They were challenged. Now let's break this down because they led by about 40 points at one stage, and it to all intents and purposes it was about what Geelong was going to, at least whether they're going to raise the white flag or not. Their trail was 10 goals to 5 at half time. Yes. Now they kicked some late goals just before 3/4 time to pull the margin back. It was like 14-6 to 9-9, so it's in that 4.5 goal margin. And then they started to tighten up the Saints in the last quarter and Geelong could sense it. And they had some chances. There was a goal line score review where it was, I think it might have been close, getting his boot to the ball, or Wanganeen Miller, I think it was. And it was, I'm not sure if you saw it, but... Yeah,
so Wanganeen Miller tapped it. He was outside the square. It would have been a rushed, deliberate, and goal.
That would have brought it back to, I think, less than a kick.
But centimetre perfect. He tapped it just enough and then got his boot to it by maybe a millimetre before. It might have been close.
I'm pretty sure it was close with the long sleeves, yeah.
He was claiming it as a goal, as a good forward does, and that probably held him up. Interestingly, Skeet... St Kilda had they had over 30 more uncontested marks than Geelong, and they had almost 100 more possessions as well. So this was a game, if Geelong had have won, would have stolen it.
Yeah,
they couldn't possess the footy and they couldn't stand up under the pressure.
No, exactly right. And again, they do play Marvel well, and they've got a good record there. Geelong had
or Geelong?
No, St Kilda.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they'll beat a lot of sides there this year.
Yep.
And when they get players back, who knows, they might win their 8 to 10 games. But 12 of the last 14 inside 50s
Yes.
to Geelong. So it was fascinating watching it.
Did you see footage of Ross the Boss down in the rooms afterwards? He's kissing blokes.
Kissing blokes, but yeah, I know. But an hour earlier, he's smashing the phone into the... Absolutely. Yeah. And as you would, because there were a couple of times late in the third quarter, I think it was, they've conceded goals with 2 minutes to go, and you could see exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to basically shore up his back half to get through unscathed, because if you're leading by 6 or 7 at three-quarter time, you're not home, but you have to do a lot wrong. They got to within about 4 goals played, and you could just see him just going off. And then you're right in the rooms afterwards, he's cuddling. But, that's Ross at his best.
I would say that's the ups and downs of coaching as well.
That's the upset of the weekend. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be.
Considering I looked at some of the tips for the Fox crew pre-game, Jack Revolt and I think it might have been Kingy, they had Geelong winning by 50-plus points. I'm going,
yeah, but I'm not going to criticise tips because I've got no.
No, but saying that was the theme across the league. I was pretty happy the Saints did what they did.
North Melbourne defeat Melbourne by 10 goals, 59 points. I think this was
big story.
Yeah, I mean this is huge. Jack Darling's 300th game. I thought it was really classy and great football club type stuff to get Andrew Gaff there. I saw another former teammate and Scott Lysett in the rooms wearing a kangaroo scarf, yelling "Kanga, Kanga, Kanga," and it was great to be honest, it was great to see a former teammate of mine, premiership teammate, with a new team, and they were getting right around him too. He kicked a goal pretty early, and they got around him in his 300th game. But I mean, other than the 300th, that's not the story, is it? North Melbourne were elite, and Melbourne look a shell of a club, to be honest. And I thought they were going to be back and better than ever, but they don't look it. And North Melbourne, they were the club I saw in Bunbury. Like that they're going to be good this year.
Yeah, look, we all get it wrong and get it right. I didn't have Melbourne in the top 8.
Melbourne?
No, I didn't have Melbourne.
Did I?
You did, yeah. And look, long way to go. I had North as my sharp improver. It might be Adelaide that's ended up being the sharp improver. But, Tristan Cherry, I think, again, he's franked himself as we talk about the ruckman all morning about what some of the best in the comp are doing. And he had an absolute day out, 29 hit-outs, 12 clearances. They kicked 6 goals in, I think, 6 minutes in the last quarter. That's the margin just got away from Melbourne. And the other storyline, just going back to the Cherry dominance, is Max Gawn. And the Simon Goodwin comments after the game about Max's performance and what's happening now, whether there's something in his personal life that, and fair enough, that's not being made public, but...
Well, it is now.
Well, specifically, obviously not whatever's happening, but it has been brought to the forefront about where he's at and how he's tracking.
Do you think we would have come out of this game going, what's wrong with Max Gawn, without that comment?
Not sure. I don't know if it was the...
I'll watch this whole game and...
You watched a lot of footy in the weekend sitting at...
no one wants to employ me anymore, so...
I
just had a little rest weekend. Just
freshen up,
for the derby.
Being managed.
Tristan Cherry, I didn't have him as a clear-cut best on ground. He was good, and he was certainly massive in the last quarter. Those 6 goals were all off the back of his clearances. Like, he had a 10-minute burst where he just dominated the last quarter. But I didn't have him as a clear-cut best on ground. Like, there was some good players. Sheasel was very good throughout. I thought David Uniacke was, elite. Zerha was good forward with 4 goals. Tristan Cherry, I think, is, close to the best ruckman in the competition because of not only his work he does at the contest, but around the ground as well. But I just didn't have him as a clear best on ground. And without the comments from Simon Goodwin in the press conference, I don't think I'm coming out of that game going, geez, I wonder what's wrong with Max Gawn. So it's clearly something that...
He mentioned it's personal.
In the club, or that's clearly something they want out there if he's dropping it in the press conference. Otherwise, if it's personal...
He may have been asked a specific question about Max, which I'm not privy to, but either way, Cherry wins that, or certainly nullifies the influence of Gawn, despite the midfield prowess of the Demons. Let's be honest, and I think I've said this last year, and nothing's changed. Can they kick a score? I mean, what did they finish with yesterday? Kicked 9 goals. You're not winning many, if any, games of footy in the AFL with 9.
No. The attack seems to be, what we've got issues with clubs across the weekend, Skeet. We're going to keep watching that. Will Schofield, Mark Redding, Shelter Brewing Co. Beer fresh from the Busselton foreshore. You like the little change in stings this week, mate? Like it?
Oh, I'm just all over it. Yeah, it's very slick, very crisp.
From Stella on YouTube, we're going to get some questions and comments to finish us off, Skater. We need a Pooperama t-shirt merch. Give the people what they want, says Stella. Can you do that? What would you have as that picture? Just you shooting your mouth? Pooperama's at Mark Redding's turn.
No, it's mine. I think Barra it's not new. I'm not claiming it as mine.
It's yours. The whole idea of getting it reported is to stamp out the action before someone gets hurt. That's why outcome over action makes no sense. I knew this was a problem when they let Toby Green off for raising his studs as a shield against the Dogs, I think. That is the farthest thing from football action, and he got off. There was a few ones this weekend that have got off that I found interesting. McCreary slammed Rory Lobb into the concrete beside the turf over the boundary. Rory Lobb gets up and runs off. I don't know if we want blokes getting slammed into the concrete and AstroTurf at grounds. I think that's an action that should be suspended. What do you think? It wasn't, by the way.
I think if Rory Lobb is injured in any capacity, then that's
outcome,
changes.
though, Skeet.
But that's what happens.
No,
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Someone slammed into a fence. Well, you are. You're sort of saying the opposite thing to me. Someone slammed. Yeah, because you're saying if Rory Lobb gets injured, he would have got weeks.
Of course he would. But that's 100%. You don't agree with that? Of course he would have got. Of course he would have been.
What I'm asking for is McCreary to be reported and suspended for the action, which he hasn't been.
Yeah, that's. I can't.
The action's bad.
I can't see that happening.
So
in the
if
short term.
I get thrown into a fence and smash my whole body against it, but I don't hit it well enough, so I'm good to run off. I think being thrown into a fence is a terrible action. It should be.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different to what happened with McCreary.
Yeah, but action and outcome. I'm not sure if you come with me.
No, I do. I agree with you, but it's not changing until someone gets injured or the action was deemed that aggressive. I think that.
But until someone gets injured is outcome.
I know, but I'm not saying you're wrong. But that's just the way it's rolling.
Yeah,
it's just unfortunately that's just the way the AFL is viewing things, and that's so it's a roll of the dice.
The last episode has some actual sense coming out of the White House. What about if we brought back the players to defend themselves or make a statement? That way, if the AFL refuses to go away from the legalities with lawyers, at least some football sense or perspective may also be considered. If players get up and provide the insight as to why the legal direction isn't applicable or relevant to their incident from Keeley. We're talking about players not representing themselves, the Gary Ablett thing. Do you think that'd be better? There's players going, no, nothing happened. So
who's that? Keeley, is it?
Yeah, Keeley. Big fan.
Keeley sounds far too intelligent to be
listening to you.
Talking to us and getting particularly any advice about legalities. No, it makes some very good points there. I think it's like I've been to a tribunal hearing for a long time, but it is humorous to hear some of the anecdotes of yesteryear as opposed to now where, you're right, dominated by QCs and ACs and KCs.
People were very happy with your fixturing issues with the AFL. So this is from Jace on Instagram. It's meant to be the AFL saying interstate is just living in the VFL mindset. He was just clipping you for that, but it's okay. And that's the problem across the board, though. The powers that still think it's just in VFL terms. Ultimately, it comes down to money, just like the Roos playing in Bunbury. It's all about dollars. If the AFL won't do the right thing with the schedule, it might come down to clubs paying for more MCG games, e.g. GWS paying for home games there, say versus Melbourne, or handing over some dollars to make up for lower ticket sales if Melbourne host them at the G. Like if they want to play there that badly, you wouldn't like that.
Got to pay to play at the G? Give me a break. I mean, but I do think, and I know it's look, the fixturing is very difficult, but to have the interstate clubs, because you know the Victorian clubs generally get their 6 to 8 games, or in Collingwood's case, 13 or whatever it is, but surely it's incumbent on the AFL to give, say, the Giants, the Suns, where possible, at least 3 or 4 games a year at the G. How many games, for instance, did you have in 18? Off the top of your head, you'd be lucky to go there more
2 or 3.
Exactly. And look, I'm not saying that's ideal, but at least you get 2 or 3. The Giants will get 1 home away game this year. I'm not sure about Adelaide; they've just played there, but yeah, it's if we're going to stay at the MCG until 2057 or wherever it is, surely give the clubs that don't play there many times during the year more opportunities to experience what is the place we have to actually win the GF.
We're doing this for the real fans, Skeeter. Those of you who have stuck around for the whole show, we're giving away 4 Derby tickets at the Derby live preview show at the Leadville Hotel. So to win 4 Derby tickets, 2 sets of 2, you got to be there on the night. So, Skeeter, we're done for the show. But if you'd like tickets to the Derby, you got to be there on the night. And to do that, you go to backchatstudios.com.au, buy tickets to the Leadville show.
And I just want to have a quick shout out because this is the 24th day of March. I just want to say a lot of very famous birthdays on this day. Glenn Jakovich, to him.
Happy birthday.
Michael Braun.
Happy birthday.
Robert Wiley.
Happy birthday.
Glenn Archer.
What's going on 9 months ago?
The late Dean Jones. Tina Altieri, a former colleague of mine. And most importantly, Victoria Redding's my wife, her birthday. So
What'd you get her?
I've got a,
Sorry, say happy
I've got a
birthday.
present. Yeah, happy birthday. No, happy birthday to her. She won't hear this, so it doesn't matter.
What'd you get her?
I've got her a hairdryer, and there's something else I've got her on Saturday, and I've wrapped it myself. And you know the kids that wrap it, and it's got sticky tape everywhere, and it's just covering up bits of the box and everything. So, I've got a little surprise present for tonight. And,
Is that right?
Yeah, so I bought the one she wanted, the present, and then I bought a little surprise present for tonight. Went out on Saturday.
Jeez, we need to start putting a few of these tips out.
No, but the wrapping of it myself, like it was Christmas wrapper, but it's okay. So and the sticky tape, you know when the sticky tape starts, you can't get the sticky tape off, and you start abusing it, and so it looked like it was wrapped by a 3-year-old tonight. But you know what?
Happy birthday, Victoria!
Far too good for me. I'm punching well above. She doesn't follow my career much anyway, so she won't know this has happened.
If you want Derby tickets, go and get your tickets to the Derby live show at the Leadville Hotel. Go right now. Happy birthday, Victoria. That's a disgrace by you. Christmas wrapper.